Hello everyone. Today, Biker Justice Analyst bring you a story full of humanity and compassion. Enjoy listening.
Hell's angel only. Daughter is betrayed by his husband, but he save her right in time. The roar of the Harley Davidson echoed through the downtown streets as Bella leaned into each turn, her leather jacket creaking with every movement. The setting sun painted the buildings in shades of orange and gold, casting long shadows across the asphalt. The wind whipped through her dark hair, carrying with it memories of her father astride his own bike, commanding respect wherever he rode. She downshifted, the motorcycle's rumble deepening as she slowed for a red light. A group of pedestrians turned to stare, some with fear, others with awe. Bella knew that look well. It was the same one her father had drawn for decades as the leader of the local Hell's Angels chapter. The patch on her jacket meant something. It carried weight, history, responsibility. "Your legacy runs in my veins, Dad," she whispered behind her visor, remembering his strong hands teaching her to ride when she was barely tall enough to reach the pedals. He'd built something powerful here, something that demanded respect. Now it was her turn to prove she could carry that torch. The light turned green, and Bella twisted the throttle. The bike responded instantly, surging forward with raw power. She weaved through traffic with practiced ease, each movement precise and controlled, just like her father had taught her. 15 minutes later, she pulled into the parking lot of Joey's Diner, the neon sign buzzing overhead in the growing darkness. Her heart skipped when she spotted Marcus's bike already parked near the entrance, chrome gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Inside, the diner smelled of coffee and grilled onions. The usual evening crowd filled the booths, truckers, late-shift workers, and a few other riders. Marcus sat in their usual spot, the corner booth with the best view of both the door and the parking lot. Old habits died hard in their world. "Hey, beautiful," Marcus said, standing as she approached. His smile still made her knees weak, even after all this time. He pulled her close, kissing her softly before they sat down. Their waitress, Rita, didn't even need to take their order. 2 black coffees and 2 bacon cheeseburgers, extra fries to share. It had been their ritual for the past year, ever since that first night Marcus had asked her to ride with him. "You look like you've been thinking hard," Marcus said, reaching across the table to take her hand. His fingers were warm, familiar, carrying the same calluses from gripping handlebars that she had. Bella squeezed his hand. "Just remembering Dad. Riding always brings him back to me. He'd be proud of you, Bella. Everything you've done for the club, how you've stepped up, that's exactly what he wanted." Rita brought their coffee, and Bella wrapped her hands around the warm mug. "Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever be as strong as he was." Marcus leaned forward, his eyes intense. "You're stronger. Different kind of strong, but stronger." He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "Which is part of why I asked you to meet me here tonight." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small black velvet box. Bella's breath caught in her throat as he opened it, revealing a simple but beautiful diamond ring. "Your father built something amazing," Marcus said softly. "But we can build something too, together." He slid out of his side of the booth and knelt beside her. "Marry me, Bella. Let's make our own legacy within the family he created." The diner had gone quiet, all eyes on them. Bella felt tears welling up as she looked at Marcus, the man who'd fought his way up through the ranks to stand beside her, who understood both the weight and the honor of wearing their patches. In Joey's Diner, Bella and Marcus sat close together in their usual booth, a stack of bridal magazines spread across the table between their half-eaten meals. The diamond ring caught the overhead lights, sending tiny sparkles dancing across the worn tabletop. "I'm thinking we could have it at the clubhouse," Bella said, flipping through glossy pages. Dad practically built that place with his own hands. Marcus nodded, his arm draped around her shoulders. Whatever you want, babe. Though I gotta say, seeing you in one of these fancy white dresses... He tapped a photo of an elaborate wedding gown. The bell above the diner door chimed, and both of them looked up instinctively. Thomas Big Tom Reynolds, Bella's father, filled the doorway with his imposing frame. Even retired, he carried himself with the authority earned from decades as the Angels' top enforcer. Deep lines creased his weathered face, and his salt and pepper beard couldn't hide the slight frown as he approached their table. "Daddy," Bella smiled, standing to hug him. He wrapped her in a bear hug, but kept his eyes fixed on Marcus. "You two look cozy," Tom said, sliding into the booth across from them. Rita appeared almost immediately with his usual coffee order. Black, no sugar. "We were just talking about wedding plans," Bella said, pushing a magazine toward him. "What do you think about having it at the clubhouse?" Tom took a long sip of coffee before answering. "It's your day, Princess, but maybe somewhere quieter might be better?" His eyes met Marcus's. "Somewhere with less history." Bella's smile faltered slightly. "Dad, the club is our history, our family." "That's what worries me, baby girl." Tom set his cup down carefully. "This life, it ain't getting any safer. Times are changing, laws getting tighter." He looked between them. "Maybe this would be a good time to think about stepping back a bit." "Daddy, we've talked about this," Bella said firmly. "The Angels are part of who I am, who we are." Marcus squeezed her hand under the table. "Sir, I promise you, I'll always protect her." "Like you protected Johnny last month?" Tom's voice carried an edge. "Boy's still in the hospital." "That was different," Marcus said quickly. "We couldn't have known the cops would—" "Exactly my point," Tom cut in. "You can't know, not anymore." He softened his expression as he looked at his daughter. "I give you my blessing because I see how happy he makes you. But please, both of you, be careful." Later that evening, Bella and Marcus pulled up to the clubhouse on their bikes. The parking lot was full, every chapter officer present for the monthly meeting. Inside, cigarette smoke hung thick in the air, mixing with the smell of leather and stale beer. The chapter president, Mike Steele Thompson, stood at the head of the long table, his voice carrying across the room. "DEA's been sniffing around our usual routes. We need to adjust our strategy." Bella took her usual seat, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. Around the table, worn faces showed varying degrees of concern as Steele laid out the new complications with their supply lines. "We might need to grease some new palms," Steele continued. "Local law enforcement ain't cheap these days." "Nothing we haven't handled before," Bella said confidently, earning approving nods from several members. She felt Marcus shift slightly beside her but didn't turn to look at him. "It's just business as usual." The discussion continued, with talks of payoffs and protection money mixing easily with wedding congratulations, and jokes about Marcus finally making an honest woman of their princess. The night air felt unusually crisp as Bella made her way back to the clubhouse. She'd forgotten her phone after the meeting and needed it for work tomorrow. The parking lot was nearly empty now, just a few bikes still gleaming under the yellow security lights. Through the clubhouse's partially open window, voices drifted out into the darkness. Bella recognized Marcus's distinctive tone immediately, but something about it made her pause. He sounded tense, nothing like his usual easygoing self. "You don't understand," Marcus was saying in a hushed voice. "We need to move faster. They're getting closer." "Keep your voice down," another voice responded. It sounded like Joey, one of the newer members. "We can't rush this. One wrong move and everything falls apart." Bella inched closer to the window, careful to stay in the shadows. The conversation didn't make sense. What needed to move faster? Who was getting closer? The feds aren't stupid, Marcus continued, his voice barely above a whisper. They're connecting the dots. We need to act before... A motorcycle roared to life somewhere down the street, and the rest of his words were lost in the noise. Bella's heart pounded in her chest. The feds? What was Marcus talking about? Look, Joey's voice came through clearer now. Just stick to the plan. Everything's set for next month. Don't do anything stupid. Bella's phone suddenly vibrated in her jacket pocket. She'd had it with her all along. The screen lit up with a text from her father, making her jump. When she looked back toward the window, the voices had stopped. The next morning, Bella couldn't shake the unease that had settled over her. She watched Marcus getting ready for the day, moving around their apartment with his usual easy grace. The morning sun caught his face as he poured coffee, highlighting the slight shadows under his eyes. "Didn't sleep well?" she asked, trying to keep her voice casual. Marcus shrugged. "Had some things on my mind. Club business, you know how it is." Bella set down her own coffee cup with more force than necessary. "What kind of club business has you meeting Joey in secret?" Marcus froze for a moment, then turned to face her slowly. "You were at the clubhouse last night?" "I thought I'd forgotten my phone there," Bella said. "I heard you talking about the feds, about something happening next month." She searched his face. "What's going on, Marcus?" He crossed the kitchen and took her hands in his. "Baby, it's nothing to worry about. Just some internal stuff we're dealing with. Joey's helping me coordinate with some of the other chapters about territory issues." "Territory issues?" Bella frowned. "Since when do we need to be secretive about that?" "It's sensitive right now," Marcus said, pulling her close. "The last thing we need is for the wrong people to hear about it and start trouble. You know how these things go? Everyone wants a piece of the pie." Bella leaned into his embrace, breathing in his familiar scent. She wanted to believe him. Needed to believe him. After all, he'd never given her reason to doubt before. "You'd tell me if something was really wrong, right?" she asked, her voice muffled against his chest. "Of course I would," Marcus said, kissing the top of her head. "You're going to be my wife. We don't keep secrets from each other." Bella nodded, pushing away the last traces of doubt. This was Marcus, after all, the man she trusted more than anyone except her father. If he said it was just internal gang business, then that's all it was. The old church stood quietly at the edge of town, its weathered stone walls bathed in warm afternoon sunlight. Inside, leather-clad bikers filled the pews, an unusual sight that somehow felt perfectly right for this moment. White roses and delicate baby's breath decorated the ends of each row, softening the tough appearance of the gathered crowd. Bella stood in the small anteroom, her hands trembling as she smoothed down her simple white dress. She'd chosen something elegant but understated, a fitted silk gown that fell just below her knees. Her father, Mike, waited beside her, looking uncomfortable in his pressed suit but beaming with pride. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. He adjusted his tie nervously. "Your mother would have been so proud." Bella blinked back tears, careful not to smudge her makeup. "Thanks, Dad." She squeezed his arm. "I wish she was here." The wedding march began to play, its notes drifting through the heavy wooden doors. Mike offered his arm, and Bella took it, taking a deep breath to steady herself. "Ready?" he whispered. She nodded, and the doors swung open. The sight of Marcus waiting at the altar made her heart skip. He stood tall and handsome in his black suit, his usual leather jacket abandoned for the occasion. His eyes locked with hers, and the rest of the world seemed to fade away. As they walked down the aisle, Bella caught glimpses of familiar faces. The entire chapter had shown up, along with representatives from other territories. Some wore suits, others their cuts, but all stood respectfully as she passed. Her father's grip on her arm tightened slightly as they reached the altar. He turned to her, kissed her cheek, and placed her hand in Marcus's. The gesture spoke volumes, a silent blessing from a man who'd spent his life protecting her. The ceremony itself was brief but beautiful. They exchanged traditional vows, their voices steady and sure. When Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, his hands were warm and gentle. The minister pronounced them husband and wife, and Marcus's kiss was sweet and tender, accompanied by cheers and whistles from their gathered family. The reception was held at the clubhouse, transformed for the occasion with white lights and more flowers. They danced their first dance to "Can't Help Falling in Love," Marcus holding her close as they swayed together. "Happy?" he murmured against her hair. "Perfect," she whispered back. Later that night, in their new apartment above the garage, Bella stood by the window, looking out at the stars. She'd changed into a soft silk nightgown, her wedding dress carefully hung in the closet. Marcus came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about, Mrs. Thompson?" he asked, pressing a kiss to her shoulder. The new name sent a thrill through her. "About us. About everything." She turned in his arms. "About how right this feels." The moonlight painted silver streaks across their bed as they came together. Every touch felt new and familiar at once, every kiss deeper with the weight of their vows between them. Bella had never felt so complete, so certain of her place in the world. Later, as she lay in Marcus's arms, Bella felt the full meaning of this day settle over her. She was a wife now, married to a man she loved desperately, part of a brotherhood that went back generations. The responsibility felt heavy, but in a good way, like a leather cut that molded perfectly to your shoulders. Marcus pulled her closer in his sleep, and she smiled, letting her eyes drift closed. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The autumn rain drummed against the windows as Bella sorted through the laundry in their bedroom. Marcus's leather jacket needed cleaning after last night's ride, and she picked it up, feeling its familiar weight. As she checked the pockets before tossing it in the wash, her fingers brushed against something hard and rectangular. Her heart skipped a beat as she pulled out a sleek black phone, one she'd never seen before. Marcus already had a phone, the same one he'd always used. This was different, newer, with no identifying marks or stickers. Bella's hands trembled as she turned it over. She shouldn't look. She trusted Marcus, but the memory of that overheard conversation weeks ago nagged at her mind, and before she could stop herself, she pressed the power button. No password protection. The screen lit up immediately. Messages filled the display, dozens of them, all from an unknown contact labeled only as Handler. Bella sank onto the edge of their bed, her legs suddenly weak as she began to read. "Meeting confirmed for Tuesday. Bring the documentation. Evidence received. Good work on the financial records. Keep your cover secure. We're getting close." The words blurred as tears filled her eyes. More messages scrolled past. "Operation proceeding as planned. Stay focused. Remember why you're doing this. Protection program details forthcoming." Each message felt like a physical blow. The timestamps went back months, even before their wedding. Bella's throat tightened as she realized what this meant. The man she loved, the man she'd married, had been lying to her all along. The sound of a motorcycle pulling into the driveway snapped her back to reality. Marcus was home early. Bella wiped her eyes with shaking hands and stood up, still clutching the phone. The front door opened and closed. "Bella?" Marcus's voice called out, followed by his footsteps on the stairs. He appeared in the doorway, smiling, that same warm smile she'd fallen in love with. But now it felt like looking at a stranger. His expression froze when he saw what she was holding. "What is this?" Bella's voice came out barely above a whisper, holding up the phone. All the color drained from Marcus's face. "Bella, I can explain." "Explain what?" Her voice rose. "That you're a rat? That you've been working with the cops this whole time?" She thrust the phone toward him, messages visible on the screen. "That our whole marriage is based on a lie?" Marcus stepped forward, hands raised. "It's not like that. Please, just let me—" "Then what is it like?" The words tasted bitter in her mouth. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've betrayed everything. The club, my father's legacy, me. I did it for you." The words burst from him like they'd been trapped for too long. "For us. You don't know how deep this goes, Bella. The violence, the trafficking, it's gotten worse. Your father got out in time, but this life—" He ran a hand through his hair, desperation in his eyes. "I couldn't watch you get pulled deeper into it. I couldn't risk losing you to this world." Bella stared at him, this man she thought she knew. "So you decided to destroy it instead? Destroy my family?" "To protect you," he said softly. "Everything I did, every lie I told, it was all to give us a chance at a real life, a safe life." The phone felt heavy in Bella's hand, weighted with all the secrets it contained. "You should have told me the truth. Would you have chosen me over the club?" The old wooden porch steps creaked under Bella's feet as she climbed them slowly, one at a time. Her father's house looked exactly as it always had. The peeling white paint, the rusty wind chime her mother had hung years ago, the worn welcome mat. It felt like stepping back in time, to when things were simpler. Her eyes burned from crying, and her hands still shook as she knocked on the door. Inside, she heard the familiar thump of her father's uneven gait, a reminder of an old injury from his enforcer days. The door swung open, and her father's weathered face appeared. One look at her tear-stained cheeks was all it took. "Come here, baby girl," he said, pulling her into a tight hug. Bella broke down again, sobbing into his flannel shirt just like she had as a little girl. He smelled like coffee and motor oil, familiar, safe. He guided her inside to the kitchen, where the ancient coffee maker gurgled away. "Marcus," she choked out, collapsing into one of the mismatched kitchen chairs. "He's been working with the cops, all this time." Her father's face hardened as he poured 2 cups of coffee. The ceramic mug he set in front of her had a chip in the rim, the same one she'd always used growing up. "Tell me everything," he said, settling into the chair across from her. Through fresh tears, Bella explained about finding the phone, the messages, Marcus's confession. Her father listened quietly, his lined face thoughtful. "He said he did it to protect me," she finished bitterly, staring into her untouched coffee. "As if betraying everything we stand for could ever protect me." Her father was quiet for a long moment, running his thumb along the handle of his mug. "You know," he finally said, "I never told you the real reason I left the Angels." Bella looked up, surprised. She'd always assumed it was because of his injury, the limp that made riding difficult. "It was for your mother," he said softly. "She came to me one night crying, said she couldn't take the fear anymore, waiting up every night, wondering if I'd come home, wondering if the cops would show up instead, or rival gang members." He reached across the table and took her hand. "She was pregnant with you." "But you were an enforcer. The club trusted you." "They did, and leaving meant betraying that trust. But sometimes, baby girl, love makes you choose between 2 kinds of loyalty. His grip tightened on her hand. "Your mother and you were more important than any brotherhood." "The club let you leave," Bella said, her voice small, "because I was honest with them. Told them straight out why I was going. It wasn't easy, lost some friends, burned some bridges, but I never regretted choosing love over the life." He paused, his eyes meeting hers. "Marcus was wrong to lie to you, but wanting to protect the person you love, that's something I understand." Bella stared at their joined hands on the table, her father's calloused fingers wrapped around hers. The anger that had been burning in her chest since finding the phone began to shift, making room for something else, understanding, maybe, or at least the beginning of it. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. The rumble of motorcycles echoed through the parking lot as Bella pulled up to the gang's headquarters. Her hands trembled slightly as she cut the engine, but her starting scene. Bella's father takes her to a secluded cabin, offering her shelter as she processes the depth of Marcus's betrayal. He explains his decision to leave the Hells Angels years ago and emphasizes the importance of protecting her. Ending scene. Bella's mind races as she lies awake, torn between love for Marcus and the dangerous reality of the gang life. Her father's words echo in her ears. The morning sun filtered through the cabin's dusty windows as Bella sat at the worn kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee. Her father's words from the night before still echoed in her mind, but something else was brewing inside her, a fierce determination that came from generations of loyalty to the Brotherhood. She pushed the coffee away and stood up, pacing the small cabin's living room. The wooden floors creaked beneath her feet as memories of Marcus's betrayal mixed with images of her childhood, growing up in the embrace of the Hells Angels family. Every Christmas party, every summer barbecue, every moment of solidarity when someone needed help. These weren't just memories. They were the foundation of who she was. "You're up early," her father said, emerging from his room in his old flannel robe. His eyes, weathered by years of hard living, studied her carefully. "Couldn't sleep," Bella replied, running her fingers through her tangled hair. "Been thinking about what you said last night, about leaving the life behind." Her father settled into his favorite armchair, the leather cracking under his weight. "And?" "And I can't do it," she said firmly. "This isn't just about Marcus anymore. It's not even about me. He's going to destroy families, Dad. Real families." "The Brotherhood isn't perfect, Bella. You know that better than most." "No, it's not perfect," she agreed, stopping by the window to watch a deer graze in the morning mist. "But it's ours. Those men, they've been there for us through everything. When Mom died, they made sure we had food on the table. When I graduated, they all showed up wearing suits, looking uncomfortable as hell, but proud as can be." Her father remained silent, letting her work through her thoughts. "Marcus isn't just betraying me," she continued, her voice growing stronger. "He's betraying every promise, every hand that helped him up, every brother who trusted him. And he's doing it under the excuse of protecting me?" She shook her head, anger flashing in her eyes. "I never asked for that kind of protection." Bella walked to where her leather jacket hung by the door, running her fingers over the worn patches. "The Brotherhood isn't perfect, but it's family, and family protects its own. The right way together." Her father stood up slowly, his expression a mixture of pride and concern. "What are you planning, baby girl?" "I need to make a call," she said, pulling out her phone. "Mickey's been with the club longer than anyone. He'll know what to do, how to handle this without bringing heat down on everyone." Her fingers hovered over Mickey's number. She could picture him clearly. The old biker who'd bounced her on his knee as a toddler, taught her to ride her first motorcycle, and stood guard at her wedding. If anyone would understand the delicate balance between loyalty and necessary action, it would be him. "You sure about this?" her father asked, placing a heavy hand on her shoulder. Bella nodded, her jaw set with determination. Marcus chose his path. Now I'm choosing mine. She pressed the call button. Mickey, we need to talk. Can you meet me? Somewhere private. Yes, it's about Marcus. I know what he's been doing, and we need to stop him before it's too late. She listened to Mickey's response, her expression hardening with resolve. The old warehouse on River Street. 1 hour. Just you. We need to handle this smart. Hanging up, Bella turned to her father. I'm not running away from this. The Brotherhood protected us when we needed it most. Now it's my turn to protect them. The old warehouse smelled of motor oil and memories. Bella sat at a scratched wooden table, surrounded by the weathered faces of men she'd known her entire life. Mickey, with his salt and pepper beard and faded tattoos, sat to her right. Her father, looking older than she'd ever seen him, took the chair to her left. 3 other high-ranking members of the Hells Angels completed the circle. Dust motes danced in the shaft of sunlight streaming through a high window, making the scene feel almost dreamlike. But this was reality, harsh and unavoidable. So the boy's been working with the feds, Mickey said, breaking the heavy silence. His voice was gravelly from years of cigarettes and hard living. How long you figure this has been going on? Bella's hands were clasped tightly in front of her. Based on what I found on the phone, at least 6 months, maybe longer. Doc, the oldest member present, leaned forward in his chair. His nickname came from his steady hands during crisis situations, though he'd never seen the inside of a medical school. This ain't just about some minor intel leak. He's been at every major meeting, knows all our supply routes, our contacts. He knows everything, Bella admitted, the words tasting bitter in her mouth. I brought him in. I vouched for him. Her voice cracked slightly, but she steadied it. This is on me. No. Her father's voice was firm. Marcus made his own choices. Nobody here blames you, baby girl. Snake, aptly named for his ability to slither out of tight situations, drummed his fingers on the table. What we need to decide is how to handle this. Fast and quiet, or make an example. The question hung in the air like smoke. Bella felt her stomach twist. They were talking about her husband, the man she'd promised to love forever. But he'd broken promises too, hadn't he? We need to be smart about this, Mickey said, looking around the table. If he's working with the feds, they'll be watching him. One wrong move and we all go down. We need to know exactly what he's told them, Doc added, and who he's been talking to. Bella cleared her throat. I can help with that. All eyes turned to her. He still trusts me. Even after our fight, he's been trying to contact me, explain himself. Her father's hand found hers under the table, squeezing gently. She knew he understood what she was offering, to use her relationship with Marcus, to betray him as he had betrayed them. It's dangerous, Snake warned. If he suspects anything. He won't, Bella said firmly. He thinks he's protecting me, saving me from this life. His ego won't let him see past that. The men exchanged looks. They'd watched her grow up, protected her, celebrated with her. Now she was offering to help them protect the Brotherhood, even at the cost of her own heart. We do this clean, Mickey decided, looking each person in the eye. No loose ends, no mistakes. Bella gets the information, we verify it, then we move. One by one they nodded in agreement. The plan was simple in theory, devastating in reality. Bella would have to look into the eyes of the man she loved and lead him to his downfall. She stood up from the table, her legs slightly unsteady. The weight of what she'd agreed to pressed down on her shoulders like a physical burden. As she walked toward the warehouse door, her father's footsteps echoed behind her. You don't have to do this, he said softly. Bella turned to face him, tears threatening but not falling. Yes, I do. For the family, the real one. The key turned in the lock of their shared apartment with a familiar click. Bella's hand trembled slightly as she pushed open the door. The space that had once felt like a sanctuary now seemed foreign and cold. Marcus stood by the window, his broad shoulders tense beneath his leather jacket. He turned at the sound of her entrance, relief flooding his handsome features. "Bella, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for days." "I know." Her voice came out steadier than she expected. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across their living room, highlighting the dust on their wedding photo on the mantel. "Baby, please let me explain everything." He took a step toward her, but she held up her hand, stopping him. "I already know everything, Marcus." She moved to the kitchen counter, keeping it between them like a shield. "The phone wasn't the only evidence. I know about the meetings with the feds, the wire you've been wearing, all of it." Marcus's face paled. "How did you— It doesn't matter how." Bella's fingers traced the edge of the counter. "What matters is that you betrayed us. Betrayed me, and I have to stop you." "Stop me?" He laughed, but it was hollow. "I'm trying to save you, Bella. Save us both. This life, it's not what you think it is. Your father knows that. Why do you think he tried to leave?" "Don't you dare bring my father into this," she snapped, anger flaring. "He left because of love, not betrayal. He didn't sell out his brothers to the feds." Marcus ran his hands through his dark hair, frustration evident in every movement. "The violence, the constant looking over our shoulders. Is that what you want for our future? For our kids someday?" The mention of children made Bella's heart ache. She'd dreamed of that future too, once. "What I want doesn't matter anymore. You made sure of that when you decided to turn informant." "Everything I did for us." He moved around the counter, reaching for her hand. This time she didn't pull away. His touch was familiar, warm, dangerous. "We can still fix this, Bella. We can leave, tonight. I have money saved, new identities ready. We could start fresh, somewhere far from all this." For a moment, Bella let herself imagine it. A quiet life, away from the violence and chaos. A normal home, children playing in a backyard. But the fantasy shattered as quickly as it formed. "No," she said firmly, pulling her hand from his grip. "I won't run. I won't abandon my family, my real family." "The Hells Angels aren't family, Bella. They're criminals who hide behind brotherhood to justify their actions." "They're my blood," she countered. "My legacy, and you—" Her voice caught, but she forced herself to continue. "You're just the man who tried to destroy everything I've ever believed in." "Please," Marcus whispered, and for the first time, she saw real fear in his eyes. "Don't do this. Come with me. We can have a real life together." Bella stepped back, creating distance between them. The wedding ring on her finger felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "My life is here, Marcus. With the angels. With my father. I won't let you take that away from me." "Bella." "No." She cut him off, her voice firm despite the tears threatening to fall. "Whatever we had, whatever we could have had, it's over. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine." The neon sign of Joe's Bar flickered in the gathering dusk, casting an eerie red glow across the nearly empty parking lot. Bella watched from her motorcycle as her father emerged from the bar's side door, his familiar leather vest visible even in the dim light. He'd always loved this old dive, calling it his second home. Something felt off. The usual crowd of bikes wasn't parked outside, and the silence felt heavy, unnatural. Bella's stomach churned with unease as she noticed movement in the shadows. 3 figures stepped out from behind a dumpster. Even from her position across the lot, she recognized Tommy and Rick, Marcus's most loyal followers. The third man she didn't know, but his intentions were clear from the metal pipe in his hand. "Dad!" Bella's scream tore through the evening air, but it was too late. Tommy threw the first punch, catching her father in the jaw. Her dad stumbled but managed to block the second hit, his years of experience showing in his defensive stance. Rick circled behind him, grabbing his arms and holding them back. "This is from Marcus," Tommy snarled, driving his fist into her father's stomach. Bella gunned her motorcycle, the engine roaring to life as she raced across the parking lot. The unknown man swung the pipe, connecting with her father's ribs. The sickening crack echoed through the lot. Her father's grunt of pain fueled her rage. She drove straight at the group, forcing them to scatter. The bike's front wheel caught Tommy in the leg, sending him sprawling across the asphalt. Bella leaped off her bike, letting it crash to the ground. Rick released her father, who crumpled to his knees, clutching his side. The third man raised the pipe again, but Bella was faster. She grabbed a loose brick from the crumbling wall and hurled it at his head. He ducked, giving her father enough time to roll away from the next swing. "You're dead, old man," Rick shouted, pulling something from his jacket, metal glinting in the neon light. A gunshot cracked through the air. Bella's heart stopped, but it was Rick who stumbled backward, blood blooming on his shoulder. From the bar's doorway, Joe stood with his shotgun raised, face grim beneath his gray beard. The three attackers scrambled to their feet, supporting each other as they fled into the darkness. Tommy's leg dragged behind him, leaving a trail of blood on the pavement. "Dad!" Bella ran to her father, who was still on his knees, breathing heavily. His face was already swelling, blood trickling from a cut above his eye. "How bad is it?" "Been through worse," he managed through gritted teeth, but his complexion was ashen. When he tried to stand, his legs buckled. Joe hurried over, shotgun still in hand. "Called an ambulance, and the cops." "No cops," Bella's father growled. But another wave of pain made him wince. Bella carefully lifted his shirt, revealing angry purple bruises spreading across his ribs. "This is Marcus's doing," she said, her voice hard with fury. "He sent them to silence you before you could testify." Her father grabbed her hand, his grip surprisingly strong despite his injuries. "Bella, don't tell me not to get involved," she cut him off, tears stinging her eyes. "They tried to kill you. Marcus tried to kill you." She pressed her wadded-up bandana against the cut on his forehead, her hands shaking with rage. "I'm done playing nice. I'm done trying to understand his reasons. He crossed a line tonight." In the distance, sirens wailed. Her father's breathing was labored, each inhale causing him to grimace. Bella held him close, supporting his weight as they waited for help to arrive. "I swear, Dad," she whispered, "Marcus will pay for this. Whatever it takes, whatever I have to do, he's going down." Bella's hands trembled as she stared at the phone screen, reading the messages for the third time. Each word felt like a dagger to her heart. The texts between Marcus and Diego, the leader of the rival Satan's Knights gang, laid bare the extent of his betrayal. Not only had Marcus been working with law enforcement, but he'd also been playing both sides, feeding information to their biggest rivals. She sat in her father's hospital room, the steady beep of monitors providing a rhythm to her racing thoughts. Her father slept fitfully, his face bruised and swollen from the attack. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the sterile white walls. "I trusted you," she whispered to herself, scrolling through more messages. The exchanges detailed everything: dates, times, locations of Hell's Angels operations. Marcus had traded their secrets for a promised position within the Satan's Knights, securing his own future while destroying theirs. Her father stirred, groaning softly as he shifted in the hospital bed. His eyes fluttered open, focusing on her face. "What's wrong, baby girl?" Bella's throat tightened. She stood up, pacing the small room. "It's worse than we thought, Dad. So much worse." She handed him the phone, watching as he squinted at the screen. "Where did you get this?" he asked. his voice rough. Tommy dropped his phone during the attack. These messages... She swallowed hard. Marcus wasn't just working with the cops. He's been feeding information to Diego and the Satan's Knights for months. Her father's face darkened as he read. Son of a bitch. He was planning to jump ship all along, Bella continued, her voice breaking. Everything. Our marriage, his promises, his claims about wanting to protect me. It was all lies. He just wanted to secure his position with them before bringing us down. She collapsed into the chair beside the bed, burying her face in her hands. I still love him, Dad. Even after everything he's done, there's this part of me that remembers how he used to be, how we were together. How do I make that go away? Her father reached out, taking her hand in his. His palm was warm, calloused, the same hand that had guided her since childhood. Love isn't something you can just switch off, Bella. But sometimes love isn't enough. I know, she whispered. But I keep thinking maybe there's still good in him. Maybe... Stop. Her father's voice was firm but gentle. Marcus made his choice. He chose power over love, over you, over everything we stand for. He squeezed her hand. The man you loved, if he ever truly existed, is gone. Now you have to choose too. Bella met her father's eyes, seeing the wisdom there, the years of experience with both love and loss. The gang is family, she said softly. Family, her father agreed. And family doesn't betray each other for power. Marcus isn't just threatening our business, he's threatening our family. Your family. Tears rolled down Bella's cheeks as she nodded. I know what I have to do. I wish it didn't hurt so much. Her father tugged her closer, wrapping her in a careful hug despite his injuries. Being strong doesn't mean not feeling the pain. It means doing what's right despite it. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of her father's hospital room as Bella checked her gun one last time. Her hands were steady now, unlike her heart, which thundered against her ribs. She tucked the weapon into her leather jacket, zipping it closed with deliberate slowness. Let me come with you, her father said from the hospital bed, his voice gruff with concern. The bruises on his face had deepened to purple, making him look fiercer despite his weakened state. You shouldn't face him alone. Bella shook her head, adjusting her jacket. No, Dad, you can barely stand. Besides, she turned to face him, her expression set. This is between me and Marcus, my husband. My mistake. It's not your mistake, her father argued, trying to sit up straighter. He winced at the movement. That snake charmed his way into our lives, into our family. And I let him, Bella cut in. I saw the signs and ignored them. I chose to believe his lies because I wanted to. She walked to her father's bedside and squeezed his hand. This is my fight. Her father's weathered face creased with worry. At least take Tommy or Jake with you. Have them wait outside. No backup, she said firmly. Marcus will be expecting that. He knows me, knows I'll want to handle this personally. She managed a small smile. I learned that from you, you know. Face your problems head on. Yeah, well, maybe I taught you too well. He squeezed her hand back, his grip strong despite his injuries. Just promise me you'll be careful. Marcus is desperate now, and desperate men are dangerous. Bella nodded, leaning down to kiss her father's forehead. I promise. Get some rest. I'll be back before you know it. She walked out of the hospital room, her boots clicking against the linoleum floor. Each step felt heavy with purpose, with the weight of what she had to do. The elevator ride to the parking lot gave her time to steady her breathing, to focus her mind. Her motorcycle waited in the morning sun, its chrome gleaming. As she swung her leg over the seat, she remembered countless rides with Marcus, the way she'd trusted him completely, the way she'd wrapped her arms around his waist and felt safe. Now those memories felt like poison in her veins. The ride to the gang's headquarters took 20 minutes, but it felt like hours. The wind whipped at her face, carrying with it the scent of autumn leaves and wood smoke. She rehearsed what she would say, how she would handle it, but deep down she knew plans rarely survived first contact. When she pulled into the familiar lot, her heart clenched at the sight of Marcus's bike parked near the entrance. He was waiting for her, just as she knew he would be. He'd reached out last night, begging her to meet him, to let him explain everything. His messages had been desperate, full of declarations of love and promises of change. Bella cut the engine and sat for a moment, gathering her strength. Through the windows, she could see Marcus pacing inside, his tall frame casting long shadows in the morning light. He still moved with that easy grace that had first caught her eye, still wore his leather jacket like a second skin. She took one final deep breath and dismounted, squaring her shoulders. The gun pressed against her ribs, a cold reminder of reality. As she walked toward the entrance, she pushed away thoughts of what could have been, of the future they'd planned together. Those dreams were ashes now, and she had to be strong enough to scatter them to the wind. The clubhouse door creaked open as Bella stepped inside. The familiar scent of leather and cigarettes filled her nostrils, but today it made her stomach turn. Marcus stood in the center of the room, his face lighting up with desperate hope when he saw her. Several gang members lounged on the worn leather couches, their expressions wary. "Bella," Marcus breathed, taking a step toward her. "Thank God you came. I've been trying to—" "Stop!" Her voice cut through the air like a knife. "Don't come any closer." The room fell silent. Even the usual background noise of the TV seemed to fade away as everyone focused on the scene unfolding before them. "Everything we had," Bella said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her chest. "Everything we built together. It was all a lie, wasn't it?" Marcus shook his head frantically. "No, baby, that's not true. What we have is real. I love you." "Love?" Bella laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You don't betray people you love, Marcus. You don't put their family in danger." The gang members stirred, exchanging glances. Big Mike, one of the older members, stood up slowly. "What's she talking about, Marcus?" Bella pulled out her phone, her fingers steady as she accessed the messages she'd gathered. "Should I tell them, or should you? About the deals you've been making behind everyone's backs? About how you've been feeding information to the cops?" The room erupted in angry mutters. Marcus's face paled, but he kept his eyes locked on Bella. "Everything I did was to protect you," he insisted. "This life, it's dangerous. I've seen what happens to people in this world. I couldn't bear to see that happen to you." "So you decided to destroy everything I care about instead?" Bella's voice cracked slightly. "My family? My heritage?" "Your heritage?" Marcus's voice took on an edge she'd never heard before. "You mean your father's legacy of violence? The same father who—" He stopped, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "The same father who what?" Bella demanded. Marcus's expression changed, something desperate and calculating entering his eyes. "You want the truth? Fine. Your precious father isn't the man you think he is. He's been working with the Red Devils." The words hit Bella like a physical blow. The Red Devils were their biggest rivals, responsible for countless deaths in their ongoing territory war. "You're lying," she whispered. "Am I?" Marcus pulled out his phone. "They're planning to take him out, Bella. Tonight. They've been planning it for weeks, and he knows it's coming. Why do you think he's been so eager to keep you close?" The room spun around her as Marcus's words sank in. She thought of her father in the hospital, of all his warnings and attempts to protect her. But something didn't add up. The ambush, her father's injuries. "If what you're saying is true," she said slowly, "then why did they try to kill him yesterday?" Marcus's face flickered with surprise, just for a moment, but it was enough. Bella felt the last piece of her heart shatter as she realized the truth. "You," she breathed, "you ordered that hit on my father." The gang members around them tensed, hands moving to weapons. Marcus's mask finally cracked, revealing the desperate man beneath. "I did it for us," he pleaded. "Your father would never let us leave, never let us be free. I had to—" "There is no us," Bella cut him off, her voice ice cold. "Not anymore, not ever again." The night air crackled with tension as gunshots pierced the darkness. Bella crouched behind an old Chevy, her heart hammering against her ribs. Her father was supposed to stay back, to let her handle this on her own. But when the Red Devils appeared from the shadows, he'd come running. "Get down!" Her father's voice boomed across the parking lot. The familiar rumble of motorcycles grew louder as more rival gang members poured into the lot. A bullet whizzed past Bella's ear, and she ducked lower. Through the chaos, she caught glimpses of leather jackets emblazoned with red patches, the Red Devils' colors. The acrid smell of gunpowder filled the air. "Baby girl, move!" Her father's desperate shout came just as he threw himself in front of her. The sound of 2 shots rang out, followed by the sickening thud of her father's body hitting the ground. "Dad!" Bella screamed, scrambling to his side. Blood spread across his chest, staining his worn leather vest. His breathing came in ragged gasps. She pressed her hands against the wounds, feeling the warm blood seep between her fingers. "Stay with me, Dad. Please, stay with me." Tears blurred her vision as she held pressure on his chest. Her father's calloused hand found hers, squeezing weakly. "My beautiful girl," he wheezed. "I couldn't let them hurt you." The gunfire had stopped, replaced by the sound of screeching tires as the Red Devils retreated. Bella barely noticed, focused entirely on her father's pale face. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "This is all my fault. If I hadn't been so blind about Marcus, if I hadn't been so stubborn about staying in the life—" "No," her father coughed, blood speckling his lips. You followed your heart. That's all I ever wanted for you." Bella's hands trembled as she cradled his head in her lap. The man who had taught her to ride, who had protected her through everything, was dying because of her choices. Because she'd chosen the gang over love, chosen loyalty over safety. "The ambulance is coming," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if anyone had actually called one. "Just hold on." Her father's eyes, so like her own, locked onto hers. "Promise me," he gasped. "Promise me you'll live. Live for yourself. Not for the club. Not for me." Bella's chest tightened with grief and rage. She wanted to hunt down every member of the Red Devils. She wanted to make Marcus pay for his betrayal. She wanted vengeance for the blood soaking into the asphalt. But as she looked at her father's face, saw the peace settling over his features despite the pain, she understood. This life, this endless cycle of violence and revenge, it had to stop somewhere. "I promise, Dad," she whispered, tears falling onto his chest. "I promise." His grip on her hand weakened, his breathing growing more labored. Bella held him closer, feeling the weight of her choices, of her loyalty to the gang, crushing down on her. The man she'd loved had betrayed her, and now her father, the one constant in her life, was slipping away because of the life they'd chosen. In the distance, sirens wailed. Bella stood over her father's body, her hands covered in his blood, torn between the burning desire for revenge and the crushing realization that she needed to break free from this cycle. Her father's last words echoed in her mind, challenging everything she'd ever believed about loyalty, family, and the life she'd chosen. The red and blue lights began to flash against the surrounding buildings, casting eerie shadows across the parking lot. Bella remained motionless, caught between two worlds, knowing that whatever she chose next would define the rest of her life. The wail of sirens grew closer, but Bella couldn't move. She held her father in her arms, his blood seeping into her jeans as she cradled his head. His breathing had grown shallow, each breath a struggle that tore at her heart. "Bella," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the approaching sirens. "My sweet, strong girl." She leaned closer, tears streaming down her face. "Dad, please, save your strength." His hand trembled as he reached up to touch her cheek. "The angels, they need someone like you. Someone who remembers what brotherhood really means." "Don't talk like that," Bella pleaded, her voice cracking. "You're going to be fine. We'll get you help." But they both knew it wasn't true. Too much blood had soaked into the asphalt. Too much life had drained from his eyes. His skin felt cold beneath her touch. "Promise me," he gasped, his grip on her hand tightening with surprising strength. "Promise you'll lead them, show them. There's a better way." Bella's chest tightened with grief and determination. "I promise, Dad. I'll make you proud." A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. "Already have, baby girl. Already." His voice trailed off as his hand went limp in hers. "Dad?" Bella shook him gently. "Dad, no, please, no." But he was gone. The strong man who had taught her to ride, who had shown her what true loyalty meant, had slipped away in a dirty parking lot because of gang violence. Red and blue lights flooded the area as police cars pulled up. Bella barely noticed them. A deep fire had ignited inside her, burning away her tears. Her father hadn't died for nothing. He'd died believing in her, believing she could make a difference. Members of the Hell's Angels emerged from the shadows, drawn by the commotion. They gathered around her, their faces somber as they saw their fallen brother. These were men who had known her since childhood, who had watched her grow up under her father's protective wing. Bella gently laid her father's head down and stood, her clothes stained with his blood. She looked at the faces around her, hard men, dangerous men, but men who had sworn brotherhood to each other. "My father believed in this club," she said, her voice strong despite her grief. "He believed in brotherhood, in loyalty, in protecting our own. But somewhere along the way, we lost sight of what that really means." The men shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke. They knew she was right. "From now on," Bella continued, "things change. We honor his memory by being better, by remembering what the angel started as, a brotherhood, not just a gang." One by one, the men nodded. They had respected her father, and now that respect extended to her. She saw it in their eyes, in the way they straightened their shoulders as they looked at her. Bella knelt beside her father one last time, touching his cooling cheek. The fire inside her burned brighter, fueled by love and determination. She would lead the angels, just as he had asked. But she would lead them with compassion as well as strength, showing them there was a better way than endless violence and revenge. Her father had died protecting her. Now she would protect his legacy by transforming it into something worthy of his sacrifice. The old warehouse smelled of motor oil and cigarette smoke. Bella stood at the head of the long wooden table, her father's empty chair behind her. She chose to stand. This wasn't about taking his place, but about forging something new. 20 pairs of eyes watched her carefully. These were the senior members of the Hell's Angels, men who had ridden alongside her father for decades. Their leather vests creaked as they shifted in their seats, waiting for her to speak. "My father believed in this brotherhood," Bella said, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. "He gave his life protecting what we stand for. but somewhere along the way, we lost our direction. Big Mike, a bear of a man with gray-streaked beard, cleared his throat. Your father was a good man, Bella, but running the Angels, it ain't like running a Sunday school. Several members nodded in agreement. Bella placed her hands flat on the table, leaning forward. You think I don't know that? I grew up in this life. I've seen the good and the bad. She looked each man in the eye. But Marcus showed us how vulnerable we are when we let greed and corruption take over. The name brought angry mutters around the table. Tommy, a lean man with weathered skin, spat on the floor. That snake won't live long enough to testify. No. Bella's voice cut through the mutters like a knife. That's exactly the kind of thinking that got us here. We're not just thugs with motorcycles. We're brothers, and now a sister, who look out for each other and our community. Community? Someone scoffed from the back. Yes, community. Bella pulled out a stack of papers from her leather jacket. I've got plans. Legal business ventures. Ways to keep our income flowing without risking everything on drugs and weapons. She spread the papers across the table. The men leaned forward, curious despite their skepticism. Motorcycle repair shops, security companies, even a riding school. She tapped each proposal. All legitimate, all profitable, and all perfect covers for our other activities, which will scale back and clean up. Sounds soft, growled Big Mike, but there was less conviction in his voice. Sounds smart, countered Ray, one of the younger leaders. The feds are watching us closer than ever. Maybe it's time we evolved. Bella nodded at Ray. My father understood this. Why do you think he supported my marriage to Marcus at first? He thought Marcus had the same vision. But Marcus was weak. He chose betrayal instead of real change. The mention of Marcus brought another round of angry mutters, but this time they were directed at him, not at her ideas. I'm not asking for blind faith, Bella continued. I'm asking for a chance to prove this can work, to honor my father's memory by making the Angels stronger than ever. The men exchanged glances. Some nodded slowly, while others frowned and whispered among themselves. Bella could feel the room dividing, those ready for change and those clinging to the old ways. Big Mike stood up, his massive frame casting a shadow across the table. The room fell silent, waiting. He looked at Bella for a long moment, then slowly extended his hand. Your father would be proud, he rumbled. I'm in. One by one, others stood and offered their support. Not all. Some stayed seated, their faces dark with disapproval. But it was enough. Bella shook each hand firmly, recognizing this for what it was. Not an ending, but a beginning. Bella sat in her father's old office, running her fingers along the worn leather armrests of his chair. The morning sun filtered through the dusty blinds, casting warm stripes across the wooden desk. Photos lined the walls, her father with fellow riders, at rallies, and one special picture of him holding her as a little girl on his beloved Harley. She picked up a stack of paperwork, applications for their new legitimate businesses. 3 motorcycle repair shops were already up and running, managed by trusted angels who knew their way around engines. The riding school was set to open next month. Things were changing, just as she'd promised. Would you believe it, Dad? She whispered to the empty room. Your little girl running things, doing it differently. Her throat tightened, but she smiled through the tears that threatened to fall. The pain of losing him was still fresh, like a wound that refused to heal completely. But each day brought a little more peace, especially when she saw how the changes were affecting the gang. The younger members were eager for legitimate work, and even some of the old guard were coming around. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Come in, she called out. Ray, one of her most loyal supporters, stepped inside. Morning, boss. The books from the repair shops are looking good. Profits up 20% from last month. Bella nodded, satisfaction warming her chest. That's what happens when you run things right. Any word from the holdouts? Couple more came around yesterday, signed up for shifts at the shops. Ray hesitated. But that's not why I'm here. Something in his tone made her sit up straighter. What is it? Ray pulled an envelope from his jacket and placed it on her desk. This came for you, through the old channels. Bella's heart skipped a beat when she recognized the handwriting. Marcus. Her fingers trembled slightly as she picked up the envelope. Want me to stay? Ray asked quietly. She shook her head. No, I've got this. Thanks, Ray. Once alone, Bella opened the letter. Marcus's familiar scrawl filled the page. Bella, my love, I know I hurt you. I know I betrayed everything you believe in, but I did it all for us. For a future where we could be together without violence and fear. The authorities are offering witness protection. We could start fresh, somewhere new. Just you and me, like we always dreamed. Please, baby, reconsider. I love you. Marcus. Bella read the words twice, feeling the old pull of their love, the dreams they'd shared. For a moment she allowed herself to imagine it, a normal life, away from all this. Then her eyes drifted to her father's photo. He'd given his life protecting the brotherhood, protecting her. And here was Marcus, still trying to tear it all down, still refusing to understand what really mattered. With steady hands, Bella struck a match and held it to the corner of the letter. She watched the flame crawl across Marcus's words, turning them to ash in the metal trash can beside her desk. Goodbye, Marcus, she whispered, watching the last bits of paper blacken and curl. The smoke drifted up, carrying with it the last traces of doubt from her heart. She turned back to the stack of paperwork on her desk. There were repair shops to manage, members to lead, and a legacy to build. Her father had shown her the way, and she would make him proud. Bella stood at the entrance of the local community center, her leather jacket feeling strangely out of place among the cheerful posters advertising youth programs and senior activities. She took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and pushed through the double doors. Inside, the center's director, Mrs. Thompson, waited with crossed arms and a skeptical expression. Miss Martinez, I must say, this is unexpected. I know our reputation precedes us, Bella said, keeping her voice soft but firm. That's exactly why I'm here. We want to change how the community sees the angels. Mrs. Thompson's eyebrows rose. And how do you propose to do that? We'd like to start by offering our repair shops for vocational training, free motorcycle maintenance classes for at-risk youth. Bella pulled out a carefully prepared folder. We've got certified mechanics ready to teach, and we'll provide all the tools and materials. The director took the folder, thumbing through the papers with growing interest. This is quite detailed. We're serious about making amends, Bella explained. The angels have been part of this community for decades. It's time we contributed something positive. Over the next hour, they hammered out details. By the time Bella left, she had secured their first community partnership. It was a small step, but an important one. The following week found her at City Hall, meeting with local business owners. Many faces were hostile at first, remembering years of protection rackets and intimidation. But as Bella laid out her plans for legitimate enterprises and community involvement, she saw the first glimmers of acceptance. My father's garage has been here 40 years, said one elderly mechanic. Your people used to shake us down every month. Why should we trust you now? Bella met his gaze steadily. Because I'm not asking for anything from you. I'm offering to help. Our shops will refer overflow work to local garages. We want to be partners, not parasites. The word spread quickly through the neighborhood. The angels were changing. Some scoffed, but others watched with cautious optimism as Bella's people began showing up at community events, helping with local cleanup efforts, and keeping their promises about business partnerships. 3 months into her new initiative, Bella received word that several former members wanted to meet. They gathered in the back room of a neutral diner, 6 men who had left the gang years ago, some by choice, others by force. "I know some of you were pushed out," Bella began, looking at each face in turn. "Others left because you couldn't stomach what we'd become. I'm here to tell you things are different now." "Different how?" asked Tony, a former enforcer who'd walked away 5 years ago. "The angels I knew wouldn't be caught dead doing community service." "The angels you knew were losing their way," Bella replied. "We're going back to what the Brotherhood was meant to be, helping each other, helping our community. We're still riders, still brothers, but we're doing it right this time." She laid out her vision: legitimate businesses, community involvement, and most importantly, a zero-tolerance policy for the kind of violence and exploitation that had driven them away. "I'm offering you a chance to come back," she said. "Not to what was, but to what could be. We need good men who remember what brotherhood really means, who want to build something better." The men exchanged glances, years of history and hurt hanging in the air between them. But Bella could see the spark of interest in their eyes, the longing for the brotherhood they'd lost. "Take time to think about it," she said, standing up. "The door's open if you want to be part of something new." The morning dew clung to the grass as Bella made her way through the cemetery. She carried a small bouquet of wildflowers, the kind her father used to point out during their long motorcycle rides through the countryside. The marble headstone stood clean and proud, just like her father had lived. "Hey, Dad," she whispered, kneeling to place the flowers. Her fingers traced the engraved letters of his name. "I miss you every day." The cemetery was quiet, except for bird song and distant traffic. Bella settled onto the grass, not minding the dampness seeping through her jeans. She pulled her leather jacket tighter against the morning chill. "You should see what's happening with the angels," she said, speaking softly to the headstone. "Remember how you always said we lost our way? That we forgot what the Brotherhood was really about?" She smiled sadly. "You were right. We got so caught up in power and territory that we forgot about helping each other, looking out for the community." A gentle breeze rustled the flowers, carrying the scent of fresh-cut grass and morning air. Bella closed her eyes, remembering her father's strong hands guiding her as she learned to ride, his patient voice teaching her about engines and honor and loyalty. "I'm trying to make it right, Dad, the way you would have wanted." Her voice caught slightly. "The community center's giving us a chance. Local businesses, too. It's not easy. Some of the old guard are fighting it pretty hard, but others remember how it used to be, before things got so dark." She reached out, brushing away some fallen leaves from the base of the headstone. "I promise you, Dad, I'm going to make this work. The angels can be something good again, something you'd be proud of." Later that afternoon, Bella sat in neutral territory, a small coffee shop on the edge of town. Across from her sat Rico Martinez, leader of the Steel Riders, their longtime rivals. The tension between them was thick enough to cut with a knife. "So," Rico said, stirring his coffee slowly, "the mighty Hells Angels want peace? Never thought I'd see the day." Bella met his gaze steadily. "Times change. People change. We both know this war has cost too much." "Cost?" Rico's eyes hardened. "Like it cost my brother?" "Like it cost my father," Bella replied quietly. "And how many others? Sons, brothers, friends? When does it end, Rico?" He studied her for a long moment. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A truce. Clear boundaries, respected by both sides. No more violence, no more territory grabs." She pulled out a map with carefully drawn lines. We focus on our legitimate businesses, stay out of each other's way. If there's a dispute, we talk first. Rico examined the map, his expression unreadable. And why should I trust you? Because I'm not asking you to trust me, Bella said. I'm asking you to watch what we do, see how we're changing. The community programs, the business partnerships, it's all real. We're done with the old ways. She could see him weighing her words, considering the possibilities. Finally, Rico leaned back in his chair. My people won't like it, he said slowly. Change isn't easy. No, Bella agreed. But it's necessary. For all of us. Rico nodded thoughtfully, then reached for the map. Let's talk about these boundaries. The old garage had been transformed. Where once it had been filled with the sounds of wrenches and motorcycle engines, now comfortable chairs formed a circle under the warm glow of workshop lights. The smell of pizza and coffee mingled with the familiar scent of motor oil and leather. Bella sat back in her chair, taking in the faces of her most trusted angels. Tommy, the veteran mechanic whose gray beard couldn't hide his gentle smile. Sarah, fierce and loyal, who'd been proving women belonged in the angels long before Bella came along. And Mike, young but wise beyond his years, who reminded her so much of her father sometimes it hurt. The community center's director called today, Bella said, reaching for her coffee. They want us to help with their youth mentoring program. Tommy let out a low whistle. Times sure are changing. Used to be people crossed the street when they saw us coming. That's exactly what we need to change, Sarah added, leaning forward. Show them we're more than just the stereotype. Mike nodded, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. I've already got 3 local shops willing to take on apprentices. Kids who need a second chance, you know? Bella felt warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the coffee. These were the conversations she'd dreamed of having, planning for growth, for positive change, for making a real difference. The truce with the Steel Riders is holding, she said. Rico's keeping his word. His people are staying within the agreed boundaries, just like we are. Some of the old guard are still grumbling, Tommy admitted. Change isn't easy for everyone. I know, Bella sighed. But they're coming around. Slowly. When they see the respect we're getting, real respect, not fear, they'll understand. Sarah reached over and squeezed Bella's hand. Your father would be proud. This is what he always wanted for the angels. It's what we all wanted, Mike added. We just forgot somewhere along the way. The conversation flowed easily as they discussed their plans. A scholarship fund for local kids, community service projects, partnerships with legitimate businesses. With each idea, each suggestion, Bella felt the weight of her father's legacy grow lighter. You know what's funny? Tommy said, breaking into a grin. I actually sleep better these days. No more looking over my shoulder, wondering when the next fight's gonna break out. The others nodded in agreement. Even the air felt lighter in the garage, as if the darkness of their past was finally lifting. We're not just changing the angels, Bella said softly. We're changing ourselves. Every time we choose peace over violence, every time we help instead of hurt, we're becoming who we were always meant to be. She looked around at these people who had become more than just gang members. They were family. In their eyes, she saw the same hope she felt in her heart. The path ahead wouldn't be easy, but they would walk it together. The evening wound down naturally. The empty pizza boxes stacked neatly, coffee cups rinsed clean. As her friends gathered their jackets and headed out into the night, Bella felt a deep sense of certainty settle over her. This was right. This was what the angels needed to become. The sound of motorcycles fading into the distance was like a lullaby now, not a warning. Bella stood in the doorway of the garage, breathing in the cool night air. Every step forward was a step away from the pain of the past, toward a future her father would have been proud to see. The community center's main hall buzzed with tension. Bella stood at the podium, her hands steady on the wooden surface as she gazed out at the sea of faces. Former rivals sat shoulder to shoulder, Angels members in their leather vests next to Steel Riders in their signature denim. The air was thick with history, with memories of old feuds and spilled blood. But today was different. Today was about change. "I see the doubt in some of your faces," Bella began, her voice clear and strong. "I understand it. For years, we've been divided by invisible lines drawn across this city, lines written in pain and anger, marked by territories we'd die to defend." She paused, letting her words sink in. In the third row, she spotted Rico, leader of the Steel Riders, his arms crossed but his eyes attentive. Next to him sat Tommy, representing the Angels, his weathered face showing cautious hope. "My father," Bella continued, her voice softening at the mention of him, "taught me that true strength isn't about how many enemies you have. It's about how many friends you can make. He died protecting what he believed in, but his last words to me weren't about revenge. They were about change." The room grew quieter. Dozens of faces turned toward her with growing interest. These were people who had lost friends, family members, years of their lives to senseless rivalry. "Look around you," she gestured to the crowd. "Every person in this room has a story of loss. Every one of us has scars, some visible, some hidden deep inside. We've been fighting so long, some of us have forgotten why we started in the first place." Sarah, sitting in the front row, nodded encouragingly. Her presence reminded Bella of all the women who had fought twice as hard to prove themselves in this world. But today, we're not here to talk about the past. We're here because we're tired. Tired of looking over our shoulders. Tired of explaining to our children why they can't play with kids from certain neighborhoods. Tired of carrying the weight of old grudges that don't serve anyone anymore. Bella's voice grew stronger, filled with conviction. "Unity isn't about forgetting who we are. The Angels will always be the Angels. The Riders will always be the Riders. But we can be more than just rivals. We can be neighbors, partners, friends." She saw heads nodding now, saw people exchanging glances with former enemies. The tension in the room was shifting, transforming into something else. Possibility. "Change starts with forgiveness," Bella continued. "Not just forgiving each other, but forgiving ourselves for holding on to anger for so long. My father understood this at the end. He knew that the only way forward was together." The silence in the room was complete now, every person hanging on her words. Bella felt the presence of her father, almost as if he were standing beside her, his hand on her shoulder. "So I'm asking you today, all of you, to take that first step with me, to choose a different path, to show our community that we can be better than our past, that we can build something new together." She looked out at the crowd, meeting eyes that once held only hatred, now showing glimmers of hope. Rico uncrossed his arms, leaning forward slightly. Tommy's face broke into a small smile. Sarah wiped a tear from her cheek. In that moment, Bella felt the full weight of her father's legacy settle onto her shoulders. Not as a burden, but as a mantle of responsibility she was finally ready to wear. The painful past wasn't erased, but it was becoming something different, a foundation for change rather than a wall between people. Bella stood in her father's old office, now hers, running her fingers over the worn leather of his jacket. The patches, the creases, even the small tear near the collar. Each mark told a story. The jacket hung on a wooden stand near the window, catching the morning light that streamed through the blinds. "You were right, Dad," she whispered, touching the Angel's patch on the back. "Sometimes the hardest path is the right one." The office still held traces of him, the old desk calendar he never replaced, his coffee mug with a chip on the rim, the photos on the wall showing younger versions of him with the gang. But now, mixed with these memories were signs of Bella's leadership. Fresh flowers on the desk, new pictures of unified gang meetings, and plans for community outreach programs. She lifted the jacket carefully from its stand, feeling its familiar weight. The leather was soft from years of wear, molded to her father's shape. Bella slipped it on, and though it was a bit big, it felt right. In the mirror on the wall, she saw herself, not just a gang leader's daughter anymore, but a leader in her own right. Sarah knocked on the door frame. "Morning, boss. The new youth center plans are ready for review." Bella smiled, remembering how her father used to say that the future of the Angels wasn't in fighting, but in building. "Come in, Sarah, and please, it's just Bella." "The jacket suits you," Sarah said, setting down a folder on the desk. "Your dad would be proud." Through the window, Bella could see members arriving for the day, their bikes lined up neatly in the parking lot. No more chaos, no more random violence. The Angels were changing, becoming something her father had always hoped they could be. She walked to her desk, running her hand along its smooth surface. The morning sun caught the silver ring on her finger. Not her wedding ring from Marcus, which she'd long since removed, but her father's old ring that she now wore as a reminder of where she came from and where she was going. "The guys are waiting outside," Sarah mentioned. "Traditional morning ride?" Bella nodded. It was one tradition she'd kept. The morning ride that brought everyone together, reminded them they were family. But now, instead of riding to mark territory or intimidate rivals, they rode to strengthen their bonds and show the community they were changing. She grabbed her helmet from its hook, feeling the excitement build in her chest. This was what freedom felt like. Not the false freedom of lawlessness, but the true freedom of doing what was right. Walking through the headquarters, Bella saw the changes everywhere. The walls, once covered in aggressive symbols, now displayed community awards and photos of charity events. Members greeted her with respect, not fear. The air smelled of coffee and fresh paint instead of stale beer and cigarettes. Outside, the morning air was crisp and clean. Her bike waited, polished and ready, her father's old Harley that she'd inherited along with his legacy. The other riders were already mounted, engines purring softly as they waited for her signal. Bella swung her leg over the seat, feeling at home in the familiar position. She pulled on her helmet, adjusted her father's jacket, and kicked the bike to life. The deep rumble beneath her felt like a heartbeat, strong and steady. Looking back at the headquarters one last time, she saw what her father had always envisioned, a place of strength, unity, and hope. She gave the signal, and the group roared to life around her. The wind caught her hair as she pulled out of the lot, leading the pack. The morning sun warmed her face through her visor, and her heart felt full enough to burst. This was her place, her people, her future.